Okay, I'm live and I'm sitting here and I'm going through a few things and trying to handle them as gracefully as possible. Physical punishment. Anyone that watches my channel knows that I am opposed to any physical or corporal punishment or any punishment that causes emotional or physical pain to a child or any other person for that matter. Punishment that causes physical pain or emotional pain and punishment that causes humiliation. Those are all forms of abuse in my mind. They're all abusive and unnecessary. I want people to think about this. There are people that can beat the living daylights out of other people and never leave a bruise. So there's never any evidence that that person's being abused. And mentally and emotionally traumatize the shit out of somebody. And on the other hand, there are children that have been beaten, and my son was beaten. I saw pictures of the bruises that were left on him. But the bruises are not what gauge the severity of a physical punishment. Any physical punishment is unacceptable, period. It is proven through 20 years of research that any physical punishment, and that means slaps, pinches, punches, pushing, hitting, all of that, causes a child to question the level of trust is damaged because they're not protected anymore by the person that's supposed to protect them. They're being harmed. Your brain gets confused. When you're being hurt by someone that's supposed to protect you, you get confused. It doesn't matter how hard you hit somebody. It does not matter. The fact that you are hitting somebody is abusive. So you can't say one person being spanked as a child and not bruised. Okay, to some people, it may not have had any effect. To others, it could traumatize the shit out of them and ruin their lives. My son is dead for a number of reasons. I can't pinpoint any one reason or blame any one person. The only thing I can do is take accountability for my part in it. And my part is that I didn't protect my son when he was removed from me unnecessarily. So I did the best that I could. I went to court, and when he was 8 days old, the judge insisted that he be returned home because there was no reason to have taken him to begin with. The man that I was with, the father of my 2 girls, he went to prison. CPS jumped in when they didn't have the right to, telling me that, something happened in my own personal life, and it was not safe for me to go home where my children were with their grandparents, Sandra Mitchell and George Rice. CPS, however, whoever called CPS, whoever indicated that they needed to be intervened upon, told them, because I told me and told them that it was unacceptable for my children to be with 2 elderly people who could possibly have a heart attack at any moment. And if they did, who would be there to care for the children? That was their excuse for removing my children from George Rice and Sandra Mitchell, where I was living. They didn't speak to me. They didn't question me. They didn't interview me afterwards. They just removed my children, put them where they wanted to put them. And when I did come home, which was immediately after Jean called me and said they came and took the kids, I came home. And the reasons I couldn't come home were my business. My children were cared for. My children had diapers. My children had food. I'm angry because I didn't have the man in my life to support me because he went to prison. My mom and dad were unable to help me. They were in a different city. George and Jean were the only, Sandra, also known as Jean, they were the only support that I had. And they had my children, my 2 girls. while I was this was before my son was born. Needless to say, that was, or was it? Either which way, CPS cannot produce one single fucking shred of evidence to back up anything they have ever accused me of. I'm not even sure what I was accused of, because CPS in Arizona never came to me with a case plan. They never contacted me for anything except to come to Casa de los Niños and see your daughter. And so I did. There was one time they contacted me for a drug test. I don't even know if I went to the drug test, because I think they had already taken my kids, and I was like, what the fuck is the problem here? I don't even think I went to the drug test. But anyways, that's irrelevant. They can't require anyone whose children are not being neglected or abused. They were left with their grandparents, and their grandparents were notified that I was going to be home as soon as I could, but at the moment, it was not safe for me to come home. Any details are irrelevant to anybody else. I have a right to privacy. I have a right to protect my children. I have the right to protect myself. And no one ever had the right to intervene on our lives to begin with. Now my son's commit suicide. He's dead. He will never come back. People are telling me, well, he didn't handle things the way he should have, or he was walking around like he was happy. I'm so disgusted with the fact, and the people that said this, I'm not in any way attacking any of you. All I'm saying is that I've suffered with mental illness. I'm not mentally ill right now, in my point of view. I'm perfectly capable of being safe and whatever right now. But having gone through mental illness and suicidal ideation, suicidal tendencies, self-harm issues, depression, anxiety, having gone through those things, do you guys know how frustrating it is when someone tells you you're not handling it right? Or you're walking around here all happy. Like, you look happy. You don't look sad. You don't look depressed. Do you know you know why? Because when we do act depressed or look depressed, someone's like, oh, it's just stop being so dramatic, or it's really not that bad, and everyone minimizes everything we're going through. Not understanding that when we're going through that, it's a chemical imbalance some of the time that we're going through, and we are incapable of incapable of doing what mentally healthy people do to prevent themselves from becoming depressed. We are incapable sometimes of acting rational. We are incapable of handling things the right way because our brain's chemistry is not correct. I don't understand why so many people keep saying, well, they didn't handle it right, or they were running around here like everything was okay, or do you know how many people are fucking smiling this day before they fucking kill themselves? And pardon my language if it's offensive, but I'm not abusing anyone with it, so that's what should really matter. All words were made for expression, and I'm really tired of everybody's criticism and judgment on other people for the wrong thing, for the wrong things, for things that are out of our control. Like, we sit here, and the way our family dynamics are, and the way we ignore or minimize people's suffering, or the way we refuse to take accountability for the things we're putting in our bodies, the things we're putting in our minds, the things we're saying to each other and doing to each other, the things we expose ourselves to, all of those things are causing problems. They're either causing mental health problems or physical health problems. And then otherwise healthy people that think they're otherwise healthy, that don't even realize they have mental problems themselves, are running around saying, what's the big deal? Why can't you just be okay? Why can't you just be normal? When we're suffering consequences of either abuse from other people, whatever toxins or whatever might be contributing to our mental illness, childhood issues and traumas. You know what? Just based on the fact that my father commits suicide when I was 8, there's nothing else that even had to have happened to me in order for me to grow up with mental illness. That's one traumatic event that in many people and most people will cause PTSD. That's the first and only thing that ever needed to happen to me for me to develop PTSD and abandonment issues and relationship issues and mental health issues. So when I'm depressed or when I'm anxious and everyone's telling me it's okay, just calm down, we don't have the ability to do that. Now, people can look at someone who's on drugs and say, okay, they're under the influence of drugs. They can't even control themselves. And they know that and they understand that. And so what do? They attempt to incapacitate them. They don't even sit there and try to reason with them, right? What's the fucking difference? Just because one is induced and the other is involuntary. One is self-induced and one's involuntary. There's no difference. Either which way, if someone is mentally incapacitated from a substance, including psych meds, which are the only things that have ever mentally incapacitated me, other than the one time I tried ecstasy when I was like really, really young, and the one time that I tried, Okay, there's only 2 times in my life ever that I've been incapacitated by a substance. Medication, on the other hand, several times I have been incapacitated. And not even on a large amount of a medication, on a regular dose, as prescribed level of, what's the word? Application or whatever, or when you take meds. And I was incapacitated. It's like telling someone who's paralyzed to get up and walk. Stop being such a baby. Yeah, I've seen you walk before. Why can't you get up and walk now? Because something happened to injure that person's spinal cord and they can't walk. Well, the same thing applies here. I'm doing my damnedest to get up and do what I can for myself. I am. And I'm doing my damnedest to keep my self-composure because a lot of people don't realize how ignorant they sound and how much ignorance they're passing down the line and the generations, because younger people are being influenced, people that are being taught by these ignorant people, they're being influenced and taught to think one way and be very critical and closed off and not being educated on both or all aspects of the situation, all possibilities. That's one thing about me, and that's why it's very difficult to upset me. That's why it's very difficult to get me to be, well, I'm not a vindictive person to begin with, but many times I don't excuse people's behavior, but I can understand a lot of people's behavior. No matter whether it's bad behavior, good behavior, unacceptable behavior, it doesn't matter. If it's not anything that's acceptable to me, then I separate myself from that person and I don't expose myself to that. But there was a point in time when I couldn't do that. There was a point in time I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't understanding that that wasn't acceptable or abusive or whatever the case may have been. So that's like someone going back and saying, okay, well, those times when you were abused, Amber, that was your fault because you didn't educate yourself well enough. You didn't learn the things you should have learned about social interaction or relationships and healthy dynamics of a relationship, what's abuse and what's not. You didn't educate yourself until after the fact. So it's your fault you were abused. I was incapacitated by a lot of it. In California, I was completely incapacitated. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't be around people. I had like 4 friends maybe. And they were just only like 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3 of them would actually care and be concerned and check on me to make sure I was okay, because I wasn't anyone that was offering myself out there to be seen or to be understood as being okay. Like a couple people would actually worry about me because I would never come outside. I would never go do anything. I would never call anybody. I was incapacitated by the abuse I was going through. So because I didn't have a job and because I had to get on SSI and because I'm still on SSI, is that my fault that I was disabled by that? No, it's the people that are mentally well that are able to, the people that are mentally well, that are able to see and recognize this. And instead of walking away and letting it continue to happen to someone, they intervene. They intervened in my children's lives when nothing was indicating any abuse or neglect. Nothing, not one thing was indicating neglect or abuse in my children's lives or in mine. Nothing. Other than people talking, people making assumptions. That's it. I had been exposed, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not going to give anybody details, but I had been exposed to drugs and alcohol with some of my children. Yes, I had. None of my children were born addicted to drugs or with any drugs in their system. None of them. Nor did I test positive with any of my children when they were born. So what gave anyone the right to intervene? Who's responsible for the death of my son? Who do I point fingers at but myself? I can only take accountability for my part. I can bring to other people's attentions fact-based research that shows their behaviors fell into the category of what causes these things. But when I do that, I'm accused of blaming people. I'm accused of all kinds of shit. I'm a very rational, very controlled young lady. Okay. A lot of Aspies and people with autism are very controlled. That's what people don't realize. When we get to the point of overstimulation, it's very different than anger management. It's not anger. It's frustration. It's your brain being so overloaded that the rest of you doesn't even understand what it's doing. Anger is different. When I get angry and when I start raising my voice and I start to realize the not triggers, but I start to recognize when I recognize that things are getting out of hand, I separate myself from the situation. I don't go far away. I don't run off and then just come back when I want. I just separate myself from the situation and I allow that person to come to me. And if I'm not ready to be approached, then I'll let them know, please, we need to not talk right now. That's not anyone that needs anger management. I don't hit people. I try not to yell at people. I don't verbally abuse people, but I'm like the first person that's being accused of all these things. I do not agree with physical punishment at all. Ever, not never is it acceptable. Never. Not pinching, not slapping, not pushing, nothing. Because if you can't do it to an adult, you sure the fuck can't do it to a child who's not emotionally capable of understanding why it's happening. If you walk down the street and you slap somebody on the ass, you're going to jail for either sexual harassment or assault. And that's without even leaving a mark. If someone sees it, oh yeah, I saw him hit her right there. Yeah, no bruises, but someone saw you. You can go to jail. But you do it to a kid who's not necessarily mentally able to understand what the fuck is going on, especially with parents that are just, half of the kids don't even know what the fuck they're in trouble for. There was a point in one of my children's lives where she would not go to sleep. And I still tear myself apart for this. I still tear myself apart for not standing up for me and my children because I didn't know how to. I was standing up against the authority figures in my life. I'm sorry, I was not able to stand up against the authority figures of my life because they instilled the fear in me that if I did, I would be punished. So I didn't do it. I allowed my children to be abused. One that was 18 months old and would cry because she was used to sleeping with me. And I'm not going to put in details, but my daughter, when she was 18 months old, had her butt spanked until she would lay down and go to sleep. It tore me apart, and I still couldn't stand up and say a fucking thing. And I blame myself. But am I the one at fault? No. I'm the one that was scared to speak because I was scared to be hurt myself. Why the fuck would any mother sit there and let her kid be hurt over her being hurt? I don't know. I was taught and led to believe that that was acceptable. I was raised to believe that that was acceptable. I was raised to believe that, okay, this child is doing this and it's an unacceptable behavior and that is why they're getting their butt spanked. Not until later on in life when I educated myself about being a parent, when I tried to help myself be the best parent I could be, When everyone thinks I was just sitting around doing drugs and being stupid and living my life and being happy. No, that is not what the fuck was going on. It's not. The majority of the time I was being abused myself. The majority of the time I was being abused myself, and I wasn't able to get help. That is not my fault. It's not my fault. And I did reach out. I did reach out to a lot of people that refused to understand how severe my situation and how serious my situation was. I don't blame them either. I don't blame them either. Because for whatever reason, they couldn't understand. Abused women are good at hiding the abuse that they're withstanding. Abused women are very good at hiding the abuse they're withstanding. And not because necessarily they're protecting the person that's abusing them, but because they are protecting themselves. People don't understand that either. When you reach out and you're an abused woman, you become even more abused woman in order to silence your ass. So it kind of just gradually, it doesn't gradually anything. It's an ongoing, consistent thing. I was taught as a child that being hit when I did something wrong was acceptable. So as an adult, when I was hit because I did something somebody thought was wrong, I accepted it. I don't care who wants to say that's not the case. It doesn't matter if you leave bruises or not. I got hit in the face so hard that my face was like, I couldn't talk, I couldn't move my jaw, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't eat, I don't think I could even blink my eye, but there was no bruises anywhere on my face. No bruises, nothing but swelling. I had to stay inside and not show my face until it was gone. The person that did it to me woke up the next morning and said, "Oh my God, did I do that?" Yeah, you did. I want people to understand that physical is physical no matter what. You can pinch the shit out of a little kid. You can slap the shit out of a little kid and never leave a bruise. But the emotional and the psychological damage that's done, it is so wrong for us to minimize what the hell we are doing to our children. It is so wrong for us to minimize that. And for us to pass it on down the generations is really sickening to me. It is really sickening to me. I have loved ones that I love my children to death. I love my children to death. I was not there for any of them except for Linnea, and she's 14 now. And I'm just barely being able to be there for her. And I don't blame them for anything. I try not to blame myself for anything because I have to understand. I have to understand that I was mentally incapacitated by abuse. I have to accept that because if I sit here and beat myself up for it, it's not going to do anything but push me back into depression, push me back into thinking that everything's my fault, push me back to trying to find answers to things that I will never have answers for. And I need to focus on building a healthy and safe now and future for my daughter. The rest of my children are grown or dead. 2 of my children have passed away. And I don't care if children are adopted out. I don't care if children are raised by their family instead of their mothers. When a mother loses her child, even if she doesn't even if she doesn't acknowledge okay. I know someone who lost a child when they were probably not even emotionally able to understand. And the child, they didn't lose the child to death. They just lost the child. They gave the child up for adoption. And I really honestly don't believe that has ever been emotionally dealt with. That's just my perception. I don't know. I can't say, or maybe that's what's making people think that it's difficult. I mean, it's easy. It's not that traumatizing to be away or separated from your children. Maybe that's one of the things that's making people or some people think that it wasn't as traumatizing to be separated from my children as it truly was. Because some people were separated from children, and I guess maybe it didn't ever faze them. I don't know. That really, honestly, that's not any of my business. That I'm just saying, I don't understand how people think they have the right to minimize the suffering of other people. I have a child that only lived to be 3 months old. There are times when I still sit here and I cry uncontrollably. Now, they're not as many as they were when she first passed. And to be quite honest, because I didn't have a whole lot of support and I went out and grieved the only way I knew how to grieve and support myself, and I was pretty alone, I did the best I could to not feel anything. And for probably the past, all this time up until now, I've not allowed myself to think or feel anything that would push me to the point where I felt like I was a danger to myself. And that was because I had a lot of things already pushing me to the point where I felt like it was a danger to myself. And the only reason I was a danger to myself is because I wouldn't allow myself to be a danger to the motherfucker that was threatening the safety and the life of my child. That was recently. That was the past 14 years. That's what I call recently, is the past 14 years. I literally was doing everything to and for myself to keep myself from committing homicide because my child's safety was that threatened to me. I was in fear of my child's safety to the point where I found it acceptable to literally go out and murder that person. And I had to do everything in my power to make sure, because no one else was doing what they were supposed to do. The police weren't protecting us. The judicial system wasn't protecting us. Nobody was protecting us. And I was literally to the point where I was plotting at one point, and well, not plotting as in, okay, I'm going to do this, then this. It was, okay, I'm going to walk my ass over there and I'm going to do what it takes to get my daughter home. And I don't care if that motherfucker ends up dead, because if I don't protect my child, nobody else is going to. And I knew because I sat and thought to myself, that is not going to do anything but make it worse. So I just sit here and let my child suffer in the meantime until someone understands the severity of the situation. I had to literally dumb myself down. So I couldn't feel anything. And my children suffered because of it. Because the system that was put in place to protect us was not. I had to literally sit there and let my children suffer. Knowingly, let my children suffer. And if my children's suffering is not bad enough, come on, people. Give me a fucking break. I'm sorry. I'm a little upset right now, and I don't want to take it out on anybody that's innocent and unknowing. But when people are mentally ill and when people have been traumatized, we understand it with Vietnam vets. Not always, but many times. People will understand it with Vietnam vets. And they still don't get the care and treatment that they need. They still don't. They still get pushed to the side and, oh, well, get over it. Stop being so sensitive. No. It's really not any different. It's just a different kind of trauma. Trauma is trauma. It all leaves scars on your brain and affects your ability to function, your ability to reason. And the more you continue to minimize people's trauma, the more you traumatize them. And eventually, they're going to tip. They're going to break. They're going to snap. They're going to commit suicide like my father did, like my son did. I get so angry sometimes. I sit here. I get so angry that, and I'm gonna put myself out there because this is very wrong for me to say. And I'm not going to say fully what I want to say or what I say when I get so hurt by this whole situation sometimes that I'm like, okay, my father commits suicide. My son commits suicide. I've attempted suicide over 10 times. What the fuck is the common denominator in this picture? What is the common denominator in this picture? And I literally get that evil when I'm so freaking hurt by all of this, because not one person will stop and take accountability. They all just want to sit there. Oh, well, it wasn't me. It wasn't you. It wasn't them. No. They all want to get defensive instead of look at what happened and look how serious this is. The only way to prevent it from happening is to find out what was going on and what we can do to prevent that from happening again. So until we can all sit down and assess what the hell we were doing at the time and how we were responding to things, we will never understand why my son killed himself. Until we all sit down and factor in everything we were doing, whether we see it as malicious or whether we see it as toxic or detrimental, or whether we see it as being acceptable or unacceptable, is irrelevant. We have to sit down and understand where his mind was at. And we have to stop expecting people that are mentally ill to come forward and tell us, this is what I'm feeling. This is how. Because we minimize people's suffering all the time. And that keeps people from coming forward and letting other people know when they're depressed. I feel like this. I told my daughter, no matter how you feel, honey, if you just come to me and say, Mom, this is how I feel. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know how to explain it to you. She knows I'm never, ever going to be angry at her for wanting to cut herself because she's gone through self-mutilation issues. If you feel that way, honey, even if you do it and you later come to me and tell me, I'm not going to be angry at you. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to send you off to a mental health institute. I'm not going to make you go to counseling. We're going to sit down and we're going to figure out why you feel the way you feel. I'm going to love you. I'm going to give you cuddles. I'm going to make you popcorn or candy or hot chocolate or whatever I need to do to make you feel good enough about yourself that you understand you don't have to hurt yourself like that. Because I've been there and I've gone through that and I understand what it is. It's not a cry for attention, not all the time. And if it is, then why aren't we giving them attention? If someone gets pushed to the point where they have to cut themselves to get attention, that's an indicator that you're not giving them enough attention. People don't cry for attention if they don't need it. We are so ass backwards. We are so ass backwards in this country. And mental health and mental illness it's so, I understand it. I've been through a lot of it. I haven't been through all of it. But I think we are so destructive to mentally ill people and to people that are suffering because of what is being done to them or because of what their bodies have been exposed to. Even car accidents cause trauma. I know someone with traumatic brain injury who does a lot of things that a lot of people can't stand. I love the person to death. I don't care what the fuck he does because I understand. I understand. Okay. No one else wants to accept that? Whatever. This person's never sat there and physically abused me. This person's never sat there and been like verbally abusive or to my face, like treated me like shit and made me feel, okay, the person said some things that hurt sometimes, but I've sat down and helped myself understand, okay, this person does things this way because of this and this and this and this. From my impression, from what he's told me, I can only take my get my understanding from what he's told and expressed to me, not based on what anybody else has to say about him. Not based on anybody else's experiences, but what this person has come to me and expressed to me or shared with me, I have my own perception and understanding of why he is the way he is sometimes. And some people hate it. I'm not going to hate it because I'm understanding. I'm not ever going to turn around and abuse that person just because something I said it already, expressed it with he, but just because something he says is hurtful, I know his intention is not to hurt me. And sometimes even if it is just to get a rise out of me, okay, well, that's what he does. That's what he does. It doesn't mean it's okay and I have to accept abuse. But the less I respond to that stuff, the less it happens. So, I mean, come on. We all have to be Some of us are mentally ill in one area, others are mentally ill in another. And I think there's some people that just minimize the shit out of other people's suffering when they're the ones that are actually a huge contributing factor. I won't say names. Yeah. I think we all need to sit back and look at ourselves and see how we affect other people. That is where people are going. We all need to sit down and assess our behaviors and decide or determine how our behaviors are affecting other people in a negative manner. And if they are, and there's something we can't stop or control, then we just need to not have anything to do with that person, because what we're doing is negatively affecting them. Even if we don't want to accept, if their reactions are obviously indicating that something we're saying or doing is causing a negative effect, even if we don't believe that it's anything we're doing wrong, we still need to separate ourselves. If we can't sit there and talk about it like adults and pull our pants up and be big kids or big grown-ups is what, yeah. We can't act like grown-ups, because that's what grown-ups do. Grown-ups communicate equally. It's a give and take equally. I stress this. You cannot be constructively critical of someone and not accept constructive criticism. That is not effective communication. No. You cannot expect someone to take everything you say as constructive criticism, regardless of how hurtful it is, and then refuse to accept any thing they say as constructive criticism. You can't do that. I'm sorry. I don't know if anyone understands how difficult it is to love your family of origin and to know how toxic it is. The best people to okay. Mark and Rinda have excellent videos on this stuff. Toxic family of origin. They're the people you love. They're the people you love. And the people you know should be there for you. The people you know that should be the people you trust and love and can run to and feel safe with. And then it's so fucking hurtful when you have to understand and accept it's not going to happen. It's not ever going to happen. Never. Never. I've never been an abusive person, and I refuse to let anybody insist that I was. My mother says I'm verbally abusive. My mother says I was verbally abusive to them. I have never been verbally abusive to my family. As a child, possibly. But as an adult, no, I have not. I've never said, fuck you guys. I've never said, I fucking hate you. I've sat there and screamed and yelled and pleaded and begged for help and asked, why do you hate me? That is not being verbally abusive. Expressing that if I'm expressing to my family, if I'm asking you, why do you hate me? Then obviously something you're doing is making me believe that you hate me. Whether I'm right or wrong. Either we all need to sit down and figure out what mental process is going on that's not going on accurately or appropriately and making me think everyone hates me. I mean, and it's obvious by other behaviors of mine that I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not paranoid schizotypal. I'm not paranoid schizophrenic. I'm not any of those disorders that think everybody's out to get them. Sorry, I shouldn't do that because that does seem to minimize people who do have paranoia. I'm sorry. It is you have to understand, people with mental health issues like that, like paranoia and stuff like that, it's their reality. It's their reality. And we sit there and we're like, oh, okay. You have to talk to them and accept their reality. You're not going to convince them that it's not real. That's another thing people don't understand. When people really do truly have a psychotic disorder and they have their own reality, there's no convincing them otherwise. Either you accept their reality, even though you don't understand it, and continue on, or you leave them alone, because trying to convince them, oh no, you're not ever going to heal them by, this is what it really is. Oh, that's not really what the case is. That's not how things are. This is not life. This is not what you cannot, because their brain is wired the way it's wired. They will always have their alternate reality unless you accept, because you're the rational human being with the mental capacity to understand that. You're the one, the healthy one, the mentally healthy person is the one that's supposed to be able to say, okay, this is their reality. I have to accept it, because they're incapable of accepting that their reality is not reality. That's where we're going wrong. Oh, I did go to school to be a counselor. I did learn a lot. I'm a very intellectual woman. I think I have a lot of gifts and talents that are going to waste, that are being wasted. People that don't really like me because I tell the truth and express myself, and they don't like the way that I perceive their bad behaviors. See, everyone was allowed to force their idea of bad behaviors on me. I still don't think cussing is a bad behavior. Verbally abusing someone is a bad behavior. My daughter cusses all the time. I try to tell her not to cuss in front of the children because I don't want other children to be abused because they mimic her, or in front of adults because out of respect they were raised to believe that it's disrespectful. So, and it's better for her to be self-aware and understand when it's okay for her to speak freely and express however and whatever she wants. It's like a tug of war with me, because I still feel like she shouldn't be out there like, okay, I can't express myself out here. It's not what I want her to pick up from that. I just want her to understand that the certain way of expression is only acceptable with those of us that have understanding that she's just expressing. And when she cusses, I annoy the shit out of her all the time. I'm like, what were you expressing with that? What was your intention? What were you trying to express when you said the fucking something or other? And I make her sit there and think about what she's actually expressing by using those words. Words were meant for expression, and shit is no different than poop. They both mean crap. Mean feces, mean fecal matter, mean scat, mean doo-doo, mean caca, mean poo-poo. None of those words are fucking cuss words. And neither is fucking before cuss word. It's me expressing fucking cuss words. Me emphasizing cuss words. That's it. The word cuss words, not actual cuss words, but the word cuss words. You get it. Anyway, I don't know how I got into this, but I'm just so disgusted with a lot of things. I am disappointed that ignorance is definitely being passed down through the generations. And no, I'm not calling people ignorant. When I say ignorance, I mean the lack of knowledge, the lack of wisdom. Things that should have been taught aren't being taught. So they are ignorant to some facts. Not saying they are ignorant. I'm not saying anyone's ignorant. I'm saying there are things we are ignorant to, or of, however you would say that correctly. Yes, please, don't be insulted. I'm not verbally abusing anyone or calling anyone out, you ignorant. No, we are all ignorant to a lot of things. It's being passed down to the generations, through the generations. I mean, slowly but surely we might start getting wiser, but there comes a point in time when facts are facts are facts are facts. And just because you've been misled or had the misunderstanding that something you were doing was okay, after 20 years of research-based facts indicating that what you were doing is not okay, there comes a point in time where you have to be mature enough and accepting and understanding enough of yourself to say, okay, what I was doing was wrong. Now it's probably time I should stop. Like, see, my YouTube videos and my YouTube channel, and my Instagram and my Twitter, these are like the only ways I have to help people understand I am nothing. And it's not like I have a big crowd or big family or a whole lot of people, that reputation that's been so tarnished, like I had a reputation with billions of people or something. No, I'm not a very well-known person. I'm not anyone that's popular in any way, shape, or form. I'm just a woman who grew up in a small town with very few friends, but the friends I had were good friends, and then grew up to be an abused woman. And I've experienced what I've experienced. I don't really have a reputation because I don't really know people. But within my family and within the people that know my family and then within the community, the few people that do know me don't have the right impression of who I am or what I'm saying or how I carry myself or what's acceptable to me or what I've been doing all these years. Quite frankly, it's nobody's business because no one was attempting to help me. Either A, because they didn't understand I needed help, or B, they had the wrong impression of what was going on. They didn't think I needed help. I don't know. Well, or C, or any number of reasons. For any number of reasons, people were either ignorant to my situation or just chose to turn their head to it. Needless to say, that's irrelevant. A lot of people have the wrong impression of me, and I really don't care. I don't blame them. It does get very frustrating because I'm a good person with a lot to offer, and those are actually causing roadblocks for me. Those people's points of views are actually stepping in my way of becoming fully functional and progressing through life. Because a lot of people are much more known and well known than I am. And their opinions matter to other people. And it's hard to explain because it's, I don't know. I don't believe anyone's out to get me. I don't believe any of it, but I know there are a lot of untruths, a lot of misperceptions, a lot of falsities that have been spread throughout whoever, family, community, whatever the case. I don't even know what I belong to. I don't really belong to much of anything except for in the form of word of mouth. Like, I really literally feel like everyone's gossip. Like, that's the only place I exist, in people's conversations. And I'm strangely okay with that, but at the same time, I'm very lonely. I mean, I know there's good people out there, and there's people that are willing to be my friends and not abuse me, but I'm such a vulnerable person. Of course, announcing it on YouTube probably isn't going to help. But I have to protect myself. I don't have family there to keep an eye. I don't have family there to just, be like, hey, it doesn't look like a safe idea or a safe person or a safe whatever. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. So I'm just me. I really think I'm supposed to go pick my kid up from school right now. Oh my God, I'm late. I gotta go. She does have permission to walk home, but